Hello, everybody. Welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door. And after the most ridiculous day of football yesterday and me not getting too much sleep, we got to get back into the championship stuff because in amidst all of the carnage last night, we had a new manager announced. And, well, that manager was announced as leaving his previous club hours before. Kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, that news, but we are of course talking about Scott Parker, who has joined up to be the Bournemouth manager, leaving Fulham. And this is one of those stories that it's an interesting one. It involves two brilliant players, Scott Parker and Jonathan Woodgate, and two clubs that have been relegated in recent years, and a kind of little switch around, and certainly managers that seem to be a little bit distrusted by fans, but obviously interview very, very well, don't they? So Woodgate going, Parker then leaving Fulham and taking that position up. Look, where do we start? Let's just drop in 27th of June. So look, this was yesterday. This was the announcement from Bournemouth that Jonathan Woodgate will leave the club when his contract expires. Woodgate arrived at the Vitality Stadium on a short-term deal in February. So we all remember this. Bournemouth coming down, Eddie Howe going, Bournemouth deciding to go with Eddie Howe's assistant, Jason Tindall. Never really works out, does it? It's easy to say after the event, but I dare say there are a lot of people saying before the event that the guy that essentially, I know Howe presided on some great success at Bournemouth, but the guy who essentially has just been relegated, his assistant is now going to take it on. We've seen Kevin Blackwell try and take over after Neil Warnock and Terry Connor after Mick McCarthy, and it doesn't ever seem to work, does it? Tindall does the job up until Christmas. I think they said February. And there's a very awkward photo of Jonathan Woodgate arriving as a coach, and then Tindall out, and Woodgate then gets the job until the end of the season. Now, what we must all probably admit is that Woodgate basically did better than most of us thought at Bournemouth, didn't he? He'd really struggled at Middlesbrough. Big caveat, though, they went from being a parachute team to not being a parachute team. And they went from being a Tony Pulis team to being a Jonathan Woodgate team. And we've seen before that that move away from having the financial advantage at championship level can be hard. And there's this kind of big movement on the balance sheet and adjustment there. And of course, we've seen many, many times when you go from a squad built on playing straightforward, rudimentary, basic football to what Woodgate was trying to do. It's sometimes a big stretch and very seldom starts to gel immediately. So I've made lots of apologies for Woodgate at Middlesbrough, but then he's back in with a year one parachute job over at Bournemouth, and he did do well, didn't he? I think they said in that story, 13 wins in 24 games into the playoffs. Remember, they did at one stage drop out. I remember Mick McCarthy coming in at Cardiff and then shooting up the league and going to Bournemouth and winning. But then a really, really good sort of sprint towards the end of the season, and Arnott Danjuma got fit and Phil Billing went and played at number 10, and the arrival of Ben Pearson gave them solidity in midfield. They went on a big winning streak. They made the playoffs, but they came up against Brentford, who were at the end of their championship journey. They'd battled and worked their way in this position. And you do have to say, though, they won the first leg, didn't they, Bournemouth? And it was the red card for Chris Metham that turned things. Not to say they wouldn't have managed to do something in that game anyway, but it's a built-in reasoning there for Jonathan Woodgate there. Came up against the third place team, only had 24 games or whatever it was, and didn't do badly, frankly, but He's gone, and he's been replaced by Scott Parker. So this was the Fulham website yesterday. So this is a day later after Bournemouth had announced that Woodgate was going to be going. Fulham can confirm that Scott Parker has left the club by mutual consent. Now, what we're going to see happening here is a lot of obvious to and froing and tearing up of contracts and negotiations, presumably on paying up deals. Basically, what's been announced since all this is all of Scott Parker's staff have also had severance, and all of those Bournemouth staff is completely a new broom there. And I saw on the Bournemouth Twitter yesterday, all of these staff, 7 years, 15 years, presumably the people who'd all, come up under Eddie Howe through the divisions are now all gone. So I think what's kind of delayed things is mutual consent. Obviously, the Khan family would have wanted, if Parker wanted to go and they wanted to do this deal, which they obviously both did because it says mutual consent, read into that what you will, they will have wanted to pay as little severance, pay as much as possible. And you can imagine Scott Parker probably wanted what he was due in the pay up, but wouldn't have wanted anything to stop him going on and getting working. He's a young manager who's trying to build up experience, who's got another decent opportunity now in the Championship at Bournemouth. So Parker took charge in February 2019 with the team in the relegation zone for the final 10 matches of the 2018-19 season. So they go down. That's hardly Parker's fault that they went down. It was Jokanovic who got them promoted, and then a very strange recruitment drive and, a pretty dull. Didn't bring Ranieri in. I think I'm remembering my seasons correctly there. Parker's there at the end of the season, and then going into 1920, you can see there he takes them up in the playoff final. Lots of synergy here. They beat Brentford in that playoff final. We just mentioned Jonathan Woodgate lost to Brentford in the playoff semi-final. Parker didn't ever, in my humble opinion, get Fulham to really, really click. He wanted to play football through the thirds. He ended up having to sort of move Bettinelli, the goalkeeper, out, and Mawson, one of the centre halves, and couldn't ever find a right back to do what he was going to do. And he had this front three then of Knockaert, Cavaliero, both been promoted before with Brighton and Wolves, and Mitrovic, obviously a Championship cheat code. And I was asked repeatedly through the season by Fulham fans, Ben, it's too slow, it's dull, he's not getting the best out of his resources, I don't like it, I don't get it, all of this stuff. To which it's perfectly reasonable comments, but I find it very binary when it comes to a year one parachute team. You either get promoted or you don't, and that's kind of the judgment. And yes, year one parachute teams don't get promoted, but I think if you're competent and you use that resource, which is good FFP money, and obviously way more, 5 times more than everyone else gets as broadcast, you should be in the conversation, shouldn't you? So I tend to wait until the very, very end, and they did it, didn't they? And Fulham got up. So in my kind of very binary way, Parker did a good job. He got them up. Okay, he had Mitrovic, but he got them up, and that was the deal. And then in the Premier League, it's very much Fulham just have a new team every season, don't they now? And he bombed out Ruddock and Hector and Reeve and Odoi and Brian, who scored the goals in the playoff final. And the team ends up, it's pretty much a new team. There's not even Mitrovic or Kearney, these guys who'd got them up. And it's Areola and Iain, Adrabio, Anderson, Robinson, Lamina, Anguissa, Lookman, Loftus-Cheek. Ended up playing Josh Madger up front when you really thought Mitrovic is the guy. And I have to say, you did think there was one point where I thought they were surviving, Fulham. They were always just under the water level because of their slow start. and they never managed to get to that point per game. And even though the likes of Sean Dyche and Graham Potter, Steve Bruce looked in trouble at times, they always surfed that watermark of a point per game and managed to get away. And just one game, Fulham, they took the lead, didn't they, at Aston Villa, and they were moving out of the bottom three above Newcastle. And then there was a big turnaround in that game. Villa won 3-1, I think, didn't they? Scored 3 goals at the end. And then Newcastle went on a surge at the end of the season. Fulham just tailed off into nothingness. And then you're saying, well, is this equally as binary as talking about the Championship? His job was to keep them in the league. Yes, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley, more experience, more resources. But it felt like, in context, he'd got them, Parker, into a good position. And they didn't make it. They didn't have that. We get obsessed with all the money and size and stature sometimes, don't we? And sometimes you have to look at it in context. There's 5-6 games to go, straight shootout. You score more points than that team, you stay up over those 5 games. That's the deal now, and they weren't able to do that. And then we started getting the rumblings and all of this discontent and blah blah blah. And you kind of knew Parker wasn't happy, and it looked like the relationship with the Khans and the ownership at Fulham was breaking down. So we've obviously realised since that sorting out mutual consent has been taking time for a ton of staff as well, because Bournemouth have had to do severance their end and get rid of Woodgate, and Fulham have got rid of all of Parker and his staff and presumably had to pay them all off. I don't know what length the contract was. I'm sure a Fulham fan will let me know in the comments. And they've moved all of them. I'm pretty sure all of them will go, or if they haven't been announced already, or a number of them, I'm speculating now, will go across with Parker over at Bournemouth. So there's questions here, isn't there? Is Woodgate a good manager? Is Parker a good manager? Is Bournemouth a better job than Fulham? Would Fulham have been better off having Parker and Bournemouth better off having Woodgate? I'm asking too many questions now. Are Parker and Woodgate good managers? I don't know. I really, really don't know. We genuinely need more of a sample size here, don't we? If Parker gets Bournemouth challenging now, this is different. This is not a year 1 parachute team now. This is a year 2 parachute team at a club that I think was under the cosh financially very much when they went down. There was a big fire sale. And I talked with Norwich fans all last season that Bournemouth selling Wilson, Ramsdale and Ake was the equivalent of if Norwich had, in the close season, sold Aarons, Buendia and Pukki. And they just wouldn't have got promoted, would they? And Norwich came down financially stable because they were only up for 1 year and they chose to save their pennies. Bournemouth had been up a long time and got a lot of liabilities, and that will roll in to this season as well. So the likes of, I mean, look, it's Arnott Danjuma who was the standout, wasn't it? And then possibly Phil Billing. You look at big saleable assets. Then there's young players, isn't there? Would someone take a Lloyd Kelly or a Jack Stacey because they're a good age? I'm pretty sure Jeff Lerma will be on a big contract, and I think there'll still be some manoeuvring. And yes, you do get the year 2 parachute payment, which is high and is an advantage, but is it a better job than year 1 Fulham? Probably not. However, there is that whole big turnaround at Fulham where a lot of these players were brought in on loan, and particularly Areola, but Anderson and Lookman were really good in terms of Fulham and who were the best players there last season, and they're not going to be around, and it is a restart and rebuild job. So in terms of which job's the better job, probably Fulham jest. They're probably slightly better stocked and probably in a slightly better financial position. Going to be opening up that new Riverside stand as well. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that would argue, leave it how it is. Have a crisis meeting with Fulham, and Woodgate. Did he earn a crack at a full season? I don't know. Would he be better or worse than Parker? We're going to find out all of this, it does feel very... do you remember when Kerbishley and Pardew basically sort of swapped jobs? I know Woodgate hasn't swapped jobs, and we'll talk about what's happening at Fulham. But yeah, it's very, very up in the air. I would love to know your answers to all of those questions. Are they good managers, Parker and Woodgate? Yes, we can see potential and some good things have been done. There's suspicion around both of them, and they were great players and they were English players, and Parker particularly is very good with the media and very handsome and very well liked in the game and all of that jazz. What's the output as a manager? I'm really down the middle on both of these guys. Actually, I think the potential's there, and they both seem very keen to have a really good bash at this, and they've both got good championship jobs, those parachute jobs that managers really want. And we've seen basically all the parachute jobs. Sheffield United was open, Jukanovic in there, West Brom was open and have taken Ismail from Barnsley. Now, Fulham is open. So the last question, I'm sorry, I don't have answers for you today if you're watching. Sorry, that was Parker's arrival at Bournemouth. Does it say anything about Matt Wells will be assistant coach, Rob Birch, Alistair? There you go, he's brought all his staff. There we go. So that was the unveiling of Parker during their carnage last night in all the Euros games. So here is, that's just a betting odds site there. And here are the names now for that plush, what you'd think, Fulham job. Wilder, Cooper, Howe, who we've mentioned a lot, Bilic, Lennon and Lampard. And it appears these parachute teams, they want a recent proven track record. In Sheffield United's case, Jukanovic took Fulham up in 17-18. He took Watford up in 14-15. Yes, I accept there was 4 managers, I think, that season in at Watford, and it was a bit chaotic, wasn't it? Jukanovic's Fulham team was excellent, I have to say, in 17-18. I was a big fan of that team. And recent track record, West Brom have taken Ismail, who, if you take places increased, was the guy last season, taking Barnsley from edge of relegation, bottom 6, to 5th in the end, didn't they? And up in the playoffs. We will see how that goes at West Brom. So if that is the case, then Chris Wilder obviously is your most recent promoted out of the league. Brilliant with Sheffield United, took them through League One, obviously. Then you've got Steve Cooper, who's done a fine job, I would say, at Swansea, where players have been sold out at Swansea. I know this was Potter, but James and McBurney was sold, and Joe Roden. I think there's more gone out, certainly gone in, and Cooper's used his England youth contacts to bring in Guay and Latabodier and Gibbs White and players like that, and finished twice in the playoffs, lost twice in the playoffs to Brentford both times, in fact, wasn't it, in the semi and the final. So they've got close, not close enough. Eddie Howe, he seems to be waiting around for a job, and there was a big Celtic link, wasn't there? Bilic, I'm sure he's being paid more than Jeff Bezos over in Beijing there. Neil Lennon, I don't see that one at all. I'm not seeing that link, actually. Frank Lampard, big name, West London, Chelsea, but yes, he got Derby into 6th. But that pales a little bit compared to Wilder and Cooper in terms of championship level. So we'll see. We'll see what Fulham do. Certainly Wilder or Cooper, those top 2. Nailed on guys who understand the championship big style, and you would think would have a year 1 parachute team in Fulham up near the top 6, assuming the finances are okay, and they haven't done lots of silly deals in the Premier League, and the owners are prepared to go at it, because as we said with the example of like a Cooper at a Swansea, you can have parachute money, but if the owners want to take that out and make that their dividend, then it doesn't make an iota of difference. You're in the rest of the pack with all of that. So look, that's my views. Again, more questions than answers on Woodgate and what he did at Bournemouth, Parker and what he did at Fulham, Parker and what he may do at Bournemouth. Be a similar style, you would think, to what Woodgate was trying to do, playing through the thirds. I have to say, I think Woodgate managed to inject a little bit more pace and zing, I don't know what the word is, in the 23, 24 games in Bournemouth than Parker, perhaps in the season at Fulham. But I don't know, is that comparison fair? Was Parker doing exactly what he wanted and the players doing as they were told? Who knows? It's going to be a very, very interesting one. Let me know what you think. How will Parker do at Bournemouth? Who will the next Fulham manager be? That's essentially the size of it after all of that chat. But a big managerial merry-go-round move. And we're nearly done now, aren't we, with all of these? Everton and Tottenham and Palace, and now Fulham is open, Sheffield United's done, West Brom's done. Pre-season started yesterday. People are going to want to get stuff sorted. But if this has all been rumbling a long time, maybe Fulham will have legally briefed someone and we won't be far from an announcement. Let me know what you think. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I've had my say, now you have yours. Woodgate out of Bournemouth, Parker out of Fulham, Parker in to Bournemouth. Thanks for watching. Get involved in the comments. There's big over and out from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.